Special good evening. Good evening to the president of the. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm in. Yeah.
Oh, good. Let me say a pleasant good evening to Mr. Kiran Singh. Good evening and welcome to the Observer. So it's a pleasure having you. You, of course, the president of the Greater San Fernando Chamber of Commerce. Talking to the media, you said that businessmen feel helpless and they're calling for anti-crime strategies. Today, the Prime Minister of the CARICOM Crime Symposium at the Hyatt said, if there's one aspect we may all be guilty of collectively, is that the problem of criminality and violence was not dealt with sufficiently in a much earlier time frame, in the homes, in the schools, in the prisons, in the courts, and he dares to say, in the parliaments. Does this bring you any sort of relief, based on this statement?
Well, there's a good night, of course, to Trinidad and Tobago, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on the issues. What we feel as business people is that the crime symposium that has been held in Trinidad and Tobago over the next the first day, and it's a 2-day program, was welcome news for us as business community. We feel that somehow there should be some positive outcome of the discussions from the heads of governments of the CARICOM region in which we sit. And the fact that it has been held in Trinidad and Tobago, of course, is important for us as we somewhat in a hot spot in terms of the criminality where that reached. We feel there's a scourge on the society that has grown exponentially over time. And what has happened is that the recent statement by the Commissioner of Police that we will see a reduction in serious crime and petty crime and so on, I believe within the next month, has almost signal an intention from the criminal element to advance the operations before this lockdown of crime happens. And it's unfortunate because the business people remain easy targets. They prey to the criminal element because especially those within the SME sector, the small and business enterprises, are not capitally advanced as the conglomerate sector to have the sophisticated security measures of the security cameras and armed security guards and the burglar proofing and all these measures that go with protecting your premises and your households as they suffer the consequence. So that when a businessman would advance his operation or expand at the risk of his home invasion, it begs the question as to how do we protect our assets as we remain a significant employer of workers in the country.
Yeah, Mr. Singh, let me interject here. I want to say you are 100% correct. You had the Minister of Trade, Paula Gopi-Schoon, saying that the engine room of the economy is with the SMEs, where over 200,000 people rely on, of course, to make a living. One would think then that the government would be somewhat business friendly to say, listen, let's see what's happening with these entrepreneurs. They need help. They need assistance. We're talking about security and all the other commitments that you have, whether it be VAT, Green Fund, all of these, you're paying taxes. Why is it so challenging to understand that if this is your engine room, why isn't there some sort of strategy that is being shared so business can basically boom here in this country?
It could possibly be the bureaucratic state of getting things done. The state always takes a long time in engineering the tools and the machinery to get things done. There's no excuse that the government needs to be as proactive as possible because crime continues to affect us very negatively across the landscape of the country, from the average citizen to the business person. And we look to results, we look to see statements from the government that responsible, that will inspire confidence for the business people to continue to invest in the local economy, to drive the economy forward.
Yeah, but again,
you in a partnership with
and I understand where you're coming from. That should be made a priority. One of the things you said, there's likely to see an exodus of business people. Who's going to stay in an environment that is so challenging? I mean, the mere fact that if you have to get a certain document, it's like pulling teeth. If you have to get something approved in any of these government offices, that in itself, the duration, sometimes it overlaps basically what you're trying to do. I mean, this is not an environment that you can look at and say, listen, I can be productive. Where am I going to be 5 or 10 years down the road? If there's no partnership that exists and the government having a sense of understanding how important your role of that of the chamber and the business sector in this country.
And that's an excellent point, and that's why we continue to advocate for public sector reform. The public service is in a mess. We need to have more proactive work coming from the public servants to get the job done. It takes forever to get an appointment, to renew your ID card, to renew your driver's permit, to register a business. We had the recent fiasco of we're not able to get a certificate of character if we want to employ a worker. And all these various state agencies need to step up and actually work for the salaries that they earn. And this is what is frustrating the entire country, from the government to the man on the street. It is affecting business continuity and the level of service that we could offer. The ease of doing business has dropped, unfortunately, very dramatically, and it impacts on the investor from a foreign point of view who looks to Trinidad and Tobago to look as a potential foreign investment land for us. And when we have all these challenges, how do we overcome these? And we have to find a mechanism to work together to overcome these challenges so that we could all benefit, because we continue to make the statement from San Fernando that we all here, we have to live here together, we have to work here together, and that is the only way we will prosper together to move the entire society forward.
Yeah, but
the youths are very desperate,
yes.
And you could see that in the crime statistics, that the majority of crime is happening from the youth level, and it is unfortunate.
Yeah, but do we have that social maturity to understand how important this is? I mean, it's all good to have conferences. It's all good to have conversation. But what the Prime Minister is basically saying here, there must be a shift, a change in the current culture. Now, that's not something that's easily done. That's quite a task. Because he is saying that we collectively again, we allowed slow, moderate, defiant behavioral trends to increase. And of course, we have to look at that with some sense of logic. If you allow bad things to happen and bad behavior, it creates a pattern. And that pattern then becomes a habit. And that habit comes normal to you. I mean, I think we're at a stage now that if we wake up one morning and find out that there were no murders the night before, then we'll be surprised. That's how immune we've come to this thing. So how do we begin to change that culture? Where does that understanding, where do we meet at that junction where people understand, listen, it's a culture we're dealing with. How do we begin?
To me, it's a societal change that we need. It's a cultural change. It has to start at the homes, of course, in the schools. We have to teach our children. Where's the saying of it takes a village to raise a child? It was just not more than a generation ago where your neighbor could discipline your child for committing some act of indiscipline, and the parent would agree. Now, it would turn into bloodshed. We have to change this mentality to be our brother's keeper, to be our sister's keeper, to assist each other in how we move forward instead of antagonistic approach to everything. We have rage road driving, we have breaking a traffic light. All these simple things have to change, and it will concede a better behavior among us. When we all travel to the northern territories of the world, we know how to find our dustbin. We know how to respect our red light. Respect a policeman in uniform. The children today call the policeman a paper soldier. That is utter nonsense. Who disciplines the child who leaves school and walks down the street smoking a cigarette?
Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, but that takes a level of will and courage. I mean, when you're dealing with people who would cross the street and say, well, bounce me now, and then you're dealing with individuals who say, listen, I'm just going to work hard enough to remain hired and just a little good enough not to be fired. because I'm protected. So all of this change has to stem from somewhere. And where do we begin once again? Because we could have as much talk shops as possible, as many symposiums, many conferences, but if nothing comes out of it, nothing clear comes out of it as far as moving forward, then all of these exercises will be in futility.
And this is why we also need local government reform, so that within our own corporations and boroughs, we could have a certain level of discipline and hire and fire the persons without having to go to central government to write a report that gets lost somewhere in the mail that nobody could answer to, nobody could find a way to discipline. Even a teacher with the Teaching Service Commission or the Public Service Commission, it's practically impossible to discipline someone within the service of the government because they're protected by all these archaic laws that have been existing since our grandparents' days. How do we deal with this phenomenon that has engrappled the entire society, where once we get a government job, we fix for life and we have pension after?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be that way. And again, we all we should be following the example. We like the US dollar. We like it so much. But how do we learn to respect the earning of the US dollar? What do they do? If you miss a day work, there's no excuse about it was snowing and raining and flood. Either you get to work or you get fired. There's no excuse. In Trinidad, if it drizzle, you stay home. There's no problem. No problem. You get a slight fever. No problem. Stay home.
And that's
fine.
It. And again, it's another culture. They'll tell you that my uncle's funeral, and then 2 weeks later, the same uncle that died would show up at the job looking for them.
Exactly. What is this foolishness?
Yeah.
They all would find 2 jobs. How many people leave this country and go to the United States? Everyone knows somebody who has gone there and leave a job in the teaching service, leave a job in the public service, and they go and find 2 jobs. They work 8 to 4, and then they work 6 to 10, and they get up and do it again. In Trinidad, we're lucky if they get to work for 10 o'clock and hope that they will work until 4 o'clock, and then they're done. Is this the mentality we're supposed to inculcate in the youths? That's supposed to be the future of the nation?
It makes you wonder.
This whole mentality has to change.
Yeah.
We are working to provide a future for the youths. We want the youths to propel the nation forward, instead of the running the threat of a brain drain, because the amount of students that come out of university, come out of A-levels, come out of all the different facilities of education, right, of the higher echelons of education, where are they going? Want to get this education and they can't get a job.
So true. One of your colleagues, Gayelle Singh, said that Minister Hines should be meeting with stakeholders to discuss an anti-crime plan. He said there are people in UE who should be consulted, criminologists, economists, and business leaders, and joint chambers. He added that Minister Hines needs to be more empathetic towards the citizenry, and the minister has to have more empathy for businesses and what citizens are currently facing. Perhaps, maybe he's saying basically there's a disconnect. Closing comments in that, where do we go?
I think that the minister has I wouldn't want to be a Minister of National Security shoes for any point in time, for any minute of the day. It's very challenged. We are, the murder rate is higher than it's ever been before. Serious crimes, home invasions have exponentially increased within recent times. And what we need to have is a national discussion, not only with the Minister of National Security, who sits in the National Security Council with the Prime Minister and then Commissioner of Police and the Defense Force. And it should be a collaborative effort. We have the Defense Force, we have the Army that sits there. Let's be real. We can't prevent a foreign invasion from a territory that wishes to invade us.
Right.
We will be, of course, helpless. We need to protect ourselves from ourselves. And maybe we need to expand on the joint police-army patrols. If we have to change the legislation, let's do so. Let's get the Army more involved in protecting the citizens. If it is that the police service, the human resource component of that is insufficient, we have the Army, we have the Coast Guard. Where are the patrols? When last did we hear about a Coast Guard capturing a vessel bringing in arms or ammunition or foreign illegal aliens.
Yeah.
If I may use that phrase.
Yeah,
Where's customs in all of this in preventing the importation of illegal arms and ammunition into bonded warehouses into the country? Where's the container shipping station? Where are all these legitimate arms of protecting our country? Where are these systems? Why are they not more functional to protect us as a country?
And we have a lot of questions, and I want to thank you so much. Our time is up. We will be checking in with you. All the best to you and your team, and we know it's quite a challenge, but a lot of changes need to come. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Thanks for calling, and Trinidad and Tobago, keep safe out there.
Thank you so much.